I got 7 o'clock. Let's go ahead and call this work session to order. Mr. Taylor contacted me this afternoon. He didn't think he was going to be able to make it. He was going to try to, but it's maybe a show up here later. But we'll get rolling right along. Appreciate everyone showing up. I need a reminder to silence the electronic devices during the meeting. We get right into the agenda. First thing be the open court. Invocation by Mr. Whitaker. Is that good with you, Mr. Whitaker? American flag by Mr. Crook, Brian Crook. Good with that? Roll call by Rita Crowder. Approval of the February 2nd commission meeting. They have been distributed. If you would look through them and let them know if you think any additions or corrections need to be made at the meeting. Under announcements, says candidate petitions are available at the Election Commission office located at the first floor of the courthouse. Petitions for fee offices, clerks, register deeds, trustee, and sheriff are due this Thursday, February 19th. This Thursday, February 19th. If you're going to plan on running for any of these offices, they got to be turned in by then. Petitions for commissioners, Board of Education, and mayor are due by March the 10th, 2026. I did go by today and get a list of who all has picked up, and it looks like in a couple of districts we still just got one person that's picked up petitions for commissioners, like in the 5th and the 6th. So if anybody knows of anybody or think would be good, try to get the word out on this. And some districts has got 3, some's got 4. I mean, but I see 2 districts it's just got one person that's picked up in the 5th and the 6th. Anybody got any questions or comments on this? All right, the next item will be set the agenda. We need to add the resolution 2026-02-836 to the agenda as item E1. This resolution is to adopt the master plan for the park. As stated in the resolution, the plan will be used to pursue funding opportunities and implement projects consistent with budget approvals. Did y'all, if each one of y'all get that at your spot there tonight? If you would, if you got any questions, just look through it.
I have a question.
Okay.
What will we decide tonight? Which of the 3 proposals we want to look at? Not tonight, but at our regular meeting. Because how can we go forward if you don't know which of the 3 we want to? The majority can vote on.
So actually, all 3 options are included in the plan. It is something for the commission to work off of.
Okay.
It's no major decisions being made tonight. It's basically an adoption of, yes, if we want to say put in volleyball courts, hey, we have a plan that we can refer to and kind of work off of.
Okay.
Anybody else got any questions?
I will just say at this point, when I went around to get my signatures to run, I asked 2 questions to everyone. One of them was letting them know the pool would not open and that the plan that is possible before us, what the pool would cost, and at 50%, our part would be 1.5 million. Everyone but one person said, we've got to build a pool. And I talked to a lot of people.
Anything else? All right. Is there anything else that needs to be added to the next Monday's commission agenda? Anybody got anything else that needs to be added? All right, we'll move right along to the next one, be citizens' response to the agenda items. If you wish to speak to the commission on a specific item on the agenda, please sign in at the podium. Your name will be called to address the commission at the proper time. County mayor report, Mr. McCall, is there anything you wish to discuss tonight for the mayor's report?
I will have a full report next week, but I do want to mention that we've had a number of citizens who have come forward concerned about the mud issue, not only with all the rain, but the the thaw. And representatives from Enbridge and Michael will be here on the 23rd to answer any questions that concerned citizens have about how they've been handling the mud and the wet roads. I will say that after I met with them, when Jones Brothers and TDOT and the engineer met on the 141 expansion and expressed to them some concerns, they did start putting down some heavy gravel on the entrances to the roads, so they immediately made some adjustments to try to make it better. But they'll be here next Monday night to address any concerns. That's all I have tonight.
One question for the mayor, you had mentioned last month, that we should have some numbers from the jail architect for February commission. Is that still the case as far as we know?
Yeah, I have those numbers tonight, but it's going to be covered under other.
All righty, we'll move into committee, board reports. Mr. Nall.
Do we have does our road commissioner have a contract with Enbridge on rebuilding these roads back? I had a person complaining to me the other day that some of these trucks are driving on roads that are not equipped to handle the heavy load, and they're tearing them up. I just wondered, I didn't have no way to answer him.
Let me address that. One of the points I've made consistently is that even though at some point in time we're going to receive a considerable amount of property tax on that project, we don't want to spend that money to fix things after they leave. And so I'm going to be in negotiation with them, especially on Boat Dock Road, that road be put back properly to its original situation. In other words, I would prefer that entire road be repaved, but before everyone's gone. And so that's being addressed, and we'll keep that in before Enbridge as we go forward.
Like whoever spoke with David, what road that was, and if someone speaks to any of the rest of us.
Well, it's mainly the places where they're crossing roads that there'd be issues. There's more than one in the county, but it seems like Boat Dock Road is the one that's had the greatest impact.
Anything else? If not, the next item will be the committee board reports. Looks like steering met on February 12th. We didn't have a quorum for that, so really nothing was on that. Budget and finance met tonight. Law enforcement and first response showing February the 23rd. If there's any other reports, let us know, or let Amy or Lonnie know. Then we'll move into active business appointments on page 17 of your packet. You got Board of Agricultural, Board of Equalization, and Board of Zoning Appeals appointments. Anybody got any questions in regard to this? If not, we'll move into ordinances. Public hearing and second reading on ordinance number 339-202601. Ms. Mahan, do you have anybody got any questions, Ms. Mahan, in regard to this? Be on page 20. 21. Anybody got any questions for Ms. Mahan? If not, we move into the first reading of ordinance 340-202602. The HTC CG combined zoning regulations, page 25. Full document was emailed to the commission and a link is provided in the digital package. If you wish to have a hard copy of the 165-page document, please contact the planning office. Anybody got any questions, anything on this? Yeah, Mr. Rick Grieger's here too, if anybody's got any questions or why he's here, work session on this. Mr. Grieger, Chris?
Mr. Thomas, I know you had mentioned previously that y'all had to go back and clean up a few things. Can you, I guess, or Rick, one, kind of highlight some of the things that had to be cleaned up?
Actually, I believe Ms. Mahan has a better recollection of what we did. Most of it was, like I said, there was some language that needed to be updated, some terms that were used back in the 90s that aren't really applicable anymore. And then there were some changes we had to make on department names. And then there was some section that we took out. Rosalie, I can't remember right off the top of my head where that was. But there was a section where we had, we couldn't find it. It looked like it was a spot, like a zoning that had been implied but not stated. And so we pulled those out. I made a promise to this commission that in doing this project, we were not going to be creating any new zoning laws. So if I couldn't, and Rosalie couldn't find it in the existing, we pulled a couple of those out. Now, granted, down the road, if the codes and zoning approves it, we will bring those forward as amendments. I believe they're important to be in there, but that was not the process that we were doing. And so we pulled those out.
Well, one other question, are the PUD still part of this new one, the planned unit?
Yes, the PUD, you'll find that on the back. It's the last part. That zoning is the only new that we are doing, and we just decided, both planning and codes and zoning, that it was just a better idea to do all of it at one time, because that is creating a new zoning. And so then you have a complete list now that it's all the zoning that will be in Trousdale County at that point.
Rick Grieger's here. Has anybody got any questions why he's here? Is there anything you need to go over anything with it?
David did a good job explaining it. When they were adopted in 95 and 99, there were separate jurisdictions. And if I remember right, the county went to Metro in 2000. So the old city limits went away and they were replaced with urban services district boundary, and the remainder was general services district boundary. So our challenge was to fit those things that had been designated city into a unified document that was more county influenced in this instance. And we tried to do that. I think we did a decent job of consolidating everything and leaving it separate, where the old zoning districts themselves had the different carve outs for the different uses. If you want to know what was in a C1, for instance, you had to go to that district to find it. If you want to know what was in an R1 district, you had to go to that district to find it. And we replaced all that with a matrix that shows the different uses in the different zones in the urban services and in the general services district. And likewise, where it said before that there, for instance, was a 30-foot setback, front setback in a particular district, you had to go to that district to know what the different setbacks were, what the different width requirements were, the different sizes for the zones themselves for a lot created in that zone. So we created a matrix to try to incorporate all of those different numerical requirements for the different zoning districts into one document. I think it's a 2-page document, but we did our best to put everything in a consolidated place so that you could look at one part of the ordinance as an appendix and know what the uses were for a particular zone, or what the setbacks or the lot widths or the lot sizes were for a particular zone. And it makes it a little bit easier to understand and a little bit easier to read. There are still differences shown in the different zoning districts. Some of them were so particular that I couldn't figure a way to put them in as a general part of the matrix. So those remain, as separate, and they stay with the urban services district in most cases. But trying to consolidate and bring it all into one document, we did a pretty good job of it, I think.
Appreciate you coming. Anybody else got any questions or comment, Mr. Thomas?
Rosalie, would you mind, do you remember that section that we took out, the letter section? Do you remember that?
So, got a lot from the accessory uses, which is 3.03, because it included a lot of dialogue that resembled the International Building Code, and it wasn't in either one of the city ordinances or the county ordinances. Now, we may look at doing something like that in the future to make sure that we're all compliant with that, but we took that out because that was not in the original ordinances.
I just wanted a better recollection of what we did so that the commission fully understood. We did our due diligence. Rosalie and I spent a whole day going through the old and the new and finding to make sure that we weren't doing anything extra. Mr. Beller's had the final copy now for, well, since we did that final review. Did you find anything of any significance that?
But as far as a document being put together, its cohesiveness, the comprehensive nature of it, it's excellent as far as I'm concerned. But as we move along, we'll always have some changes, some tweaking, like with everything that, but look good to me. So good job. Good job.
Just one question. It sounds like and I appreciate the work that's been done on that part of it, bringing together one piece. That document seems pretty simply, and even more simple for us to read. I know it took a lot of work to go to those pieces. My question, Mr. Krieger, if you can help us on this one, we're hearing about this PUD zoning piece. How does that change where we are going forward? What changes major if we adopt this PUD zoning?
The PUD itself is a new section, and there won't be any PUD zone properties in Trousdale County if you look at a zoning map today. It's for future application if you choose to adopt that part of the zoning ordinance, that you can have the oversight for a particular site that shows you what will be placed on that site.
That was pretty broad, and I appreciate the broadness of it. But when you said you, who is you would have that oversight?
I'm sorry?
You said you would have oversight as to what goes on that property if
The county, the way it is now, if someone brings a site plan to you today or a subdivision today, they present it to the planning commission for approval. And if there's zoning involved, it comes to the county commission. That part stays the same, whether it's a regular zone that you have today or a PUD zone. The difference is that in a PUD presentation, the development itself is tied to the zoning, whether it's a site plan for a new commercial building or a subdivision that's similar to what you see today. It would be tied to that zoning, so that what you see, if it's a 40 lot subdivision or a 40,000 square foot building, would be tied to the zoning that comes to you. In the future, if that particular development doesn't take place as it's presented, someone wants to change it, then that process has to repeat. They have to go back through the same process that they did before, because the zoning is tied to that particular development. It doesn't do anything that is a requirement if you adopt it. It's only an option. If you choose to exercise that, or if the developer chooses to exercise it, it would be new to Trousdale County. But there's nothing there today that reflects the PUD zoning. It's optional for future use.
So for example, if I were asking to rezone a piece of property, and I'm looking to rezone to R3 from a piece of property to do a subdivision, do I have to go through PUD zoning? Who makes that decision?
Today, you don't. Tomorrow, this body or the planning commission could decide that they prefer a particular development be done as a PUD. And that can be communicated to the developer and let them know that they would prefer, they being Trowser County, either the planning commission or the county commission or both, they would prefer that that development be a PUD. And their chances of getting it approval would be much better if it is a PUD. Today, it doesn't carry any weight. There's nothing that says that it has to be done that way. But down the road, 6 months, a year, 6 years from now, it may be that the county prefers that development over the way it's done today. Today, if you have a commercial rezoning request, you're approving all of those uses in that particular zone. So you don't know what's going there. If it is a PUD, you have at least some recognition and some ability to know what's going on that property based on the presentation of the site plan or the subdivision. Have I explained it?
Well, and isn't it true, we can pass that next month. Well, not next month, that's too quick, in 2 months, in 3 months. That hadn't been brought forward yet, because that's a change. That hadn't been brought.
Ma'am, the PUD is in here. It is a change and being brought in here. Yes, ma'am. It's in here, right?
It's type of zoning is what's in there. We haven't adopted the PUD yet.
Yes, ma'am. That's
Okay.
what we're looking at right now, ma'am. Sorry. My apologies for directing to an individual. I don't want to go that route. We are looking currently at PUD, and I'm trying to get an understanding of how it benefits Trousdale County to add an additional step to the process. That's all I'm trying to get an understanding of.
The steps are virtually the same. Today, when you have I'll go with a site plan presentation. That's a part of a rezoning. If you have a commercial PUD to come through and someone wants to build a 40,000 square foot building on a commercial property, they can do it today if the property is zoned commercial with a simple site plan. If in the future, someone wants to build a 40,000 square foot building and they anticipate there may be some difficulty in getting it zoned unless they can show what's going to be on that property because of where it's located, because of floodplain, because of any number of encumbrances on that property, they might feel that they would have a difficult time getting that zoning in place for a commercial rezoning, for example. At that point, they would present the site plan along with the rezoning request that would go to the planning commission for their review and be forwarded here for the commission's review, just as a rezoning is today, except that it's carrying the site plan with it. As long as they follow that, as they being the developer, as long as the developer follows that site plan and PUD the way it was approved, then they're only going to go back to the planning commission until it changes or until they request it to be changed. It wouldn't come back to the planning commission. The zoning, along with the approved development plan, stays as it was approved.
Chris?
As I understand it, basically the thing with the PUD is we as a commission are basically just going to have to be willing to, okay, say somebody comes with a 40-acre lot that's A1, they want rezoned to R1. We as a commission then just have to be willing to say, no, we want you to bring it to us as a PUD. We're going to reject it if you're just putting it R1. But if you come back to us with a PUD, show us what's going to be on the property, then you've got a better chance of getting it passed. And we just have to be willing to say no to blanket rezones and start. We can't necessarily require it to be a PUD, but I think we can, as a commission, we can have it be understood. If either bring it to us as a PUD so we can see what's going on the property, or we have to be willing to say no. Am I stating that correctly?
I think that's right. It's only a policy decision somewhere along the line. I mean, there's nothing that you're going to put on paper that says, unless you change the zoning ordinance, that says we only want to see PUD submittals. You may not want to do that. You may want to do it with a policy statement saying that we prefer PUD submittals through the planning commission, through the county commission. At some point, somebody's got to be first. So somebody's going to bring you a rezoning request, and you will, at that point, see whether it would have been better all the way around if it were a PUD proposal instead of a straight zoning proposal. Because if somebody brings you commercial rezoning request today that allows a discount tobacco store or a service station or anything in between, you're rezoning that property for commercial use. Whereas if they bring you a PUD proposal, you're rezoning that property for a particular use. If that makes sense.
Mr. Thomas had his hand up. Mr. Thomas.
So for clarification purposes, the reason that the whole PUD idea came about and why we're even planning in codes and zoning or proposing this is because of the property there on Melrose. And the planning commission really felt like we kind of got tricked. And the commission at that time really didn't pay much attention. It's why Landon and myself now, every time an R3 comes up, we always say, what's the worst that can go here if we're going to do this? Because on that particular property, the original people who came for the rezoning to get it R3 were talking about individual homes. And they wanted it R3 so the setbacks would be less and they could get 2 extra homes on that property to make the property more profitable for them. It was going to be a nice 30-something house subdivision. Everyone was great for it. Well, then they got it rezoned, open R3 rezoning. They sold it off to another individual and they bring a site plan saying, oh, well, we don't like that. We want to do townhomes. So here's almost 100 townhomes we want to put on Melrose, which Melrose can't support that traffic. But all of a sudden they've got an R3 that's zoned there. It's open zoning. And ever since then, the planning commission has been sending with unfavorable responses to those. Anything that's 5 acres or more that's R3, we've been saying, no, we can't do open zoning on that. But a PUD in an R3 situation, you know exactly what's going to go there in that R3, and that R3 site plan is now tied to that zoning. So if they decide, no, we want to do townhomes instead of single, they have to come back and get it rezoned again. They can't just change it at that point. It's no longer open zoning. And it's the choice of the commission whether they want to do the PUD zoning on it or not. It also gives the ability for a developer to come in and put residential and commercial on the same zoning, where we don't have that option currently. So you could have a situation where in the county, just like you can here around the courthouse, you can have a business with apartment above it, where you can't have that anywhere else right now. So it does add that, but really the PUD is more of a security for us. As far as Mr. Gully was asking about, well, what's the difference in the process? It actually saves a step for the developer and saves them an extra fee for showing up to a meeting. Currently, the process is you come before planning and you have to, you want to get your rezone done. Well, it goes from, you pay a fee to go to planning, then it comes to the full commission, you get your rezoning done. Well, then you come back and your project needs some sort of variance for buffer strip or something like that. So now you got to pay to go to BZA to get that. Then you got to pay to come back to planning with your site plan. So now you've had 3 different fees that you're having to pay. When you do a PUD, you come to planning or you go straight to BZA, you get everything done that meeting, you get your variance, you come to planning that night, you get your approval, it comes to the commission, and you get your 2 votes and you're done. So you could get your whole project approved in a 3-month period, where currently it could take you 4 or 5 months. So those are the benefits, those are the outlays. It doesn't force anything on anyone. It does give the commission the ability to say, hey, if you're gonna want an R3 or R2 on 50 acres, we'd really like to know what you're gonna do there. And it gives the county some security to know what's going where and how we can plan and work with our infrastructure on these projects.
I hope I get this right. Back years ago, when a guy come to us about putting a business in Texas Boot, he told us he was going to build drill bits for oil drilling, and also have one side of it be for rebuild old cars. Well, what it turned out to be, he turned into a junkyard. So if he'd had PUD, he'd had to stay with what he was supposed to put there, but of course, junkyard was part of it, what it is, and he went ahead and put it to a junkyard.
Yeah, basically, I think the thing with the PUD, we've been told for years here, that when a rezoning request comes up, we can't base our decision on what might go there, because we don't have the say on what might go there. The PUD gives us that, but it gives us the ability, hey, we're not going to approve this unless you tell us what's going there, and you've got to stick with what you tell us is going there. So to me, that's almost a no-brainer that we would want to require that.
Mr. Gregory, it sounds as if, as an elected individual sitting here, I have always hoped that I serve the people that own this property. And you just said, we get to tell you what you want, we want you to put there, or you're going to have to tell us before we put it there. I just ask that we're careful in not over-governing in this case. We have a zoning map. We have zoning laws that are very decent. If there's some changes that need to be made, let's make them. But I sure hope that I'm not hearing us say that as an elected-ish body, and the reason I say ish, I hear some spots don't even have 2 people running for them, or definitely don't have more than 2. So we're kind of not elected, but just getting 25 names and you're in. I just ask that we're careful on that piece going forward, not over governing from this body. It's my whole concern here from this piece.
I'm going to interject, if you don't mind, something that I want to recall to everyone's memory regarding to the mining. Had we had this PUD in place at that time, we wouldn't have ran into that issue. We would have had some more oversight by the county commission. It would have never have been gone as far as it did. We wound up in a lawsuit, and thankfully we won over it. I recommend it to this body.
Yeah, to clarify basically what I said, I really probably should not have said it doesn't give us the ability to tell you what we want. Especially as us saying, if you want this approved, tell us what you're going to put on there, not us dictating what goes there.
Mr. Beller, can we put PUD on a commercial side of this thing and not on all? The concern seems to be commercial and industrial. Can commercial and industrial be put in a PUD side of things and residential pieces be
Ms.
left out?
Byhan?
We didn't put industrial in there. Typically industrial uses are a little bit different in the way they come through, the way they're operated, the way they are established. It can be done, but today it doesn't call for them. It's commercial, like commercial retail, like traditional commercial, typically is what you find in a PUD presentation. And it doesn't require that a use be particular to the PUD. if it is a PUD, it has a list of allowed uses, and those uses are chosen by the developer, and that choice is presented to the planning commission and the county commission. There's no requirement that a particular use be presented. It's up to the developer. Is that making sense?
My question was answered, we could separate CPUD from regular PUD, is what I understood. Is that correct?
It is separate. There's a residential component and there's a commercial component, and there may even be a mixed use component. I can't remember standing here, but it can be commercial or it can be PUD, and they have separate requirements.
What's presented to us is both, correct? That's what I was asking, but they can be separated.
So as it's presented, there's a PUD residential, there's a PUD mixed use, which would be residential commercial, and then there's a PUD zoning for commercial. So you're adding 3 different zonings to your existing A1, R1, your consisting. We could easily do an industrial PUD as another zoning later, if the body wanted to do that. So that industrial could be done the same way as the other. This is not mandating a PUD type zoning be done. It is adding the option so that a developer can go this way. An example would be the 10 acres we had that ran from Church Street on up to, I cannot remember the road at the top there, where, do what now? To Morrison. He wanted to go, the property owner wanted to take that 10 acres and have the whole 10 acres zoned as R3. But he was only wanting to build across the top at Morrison and at the bottom. But then that would have allowed future development of that whole 10 acres into apartments down the road. Planning told him that no, we're not advising the full commission to rezone that much into R3. He's like, well, I don't want to do it all. So a PUD would have allowed him to just present that plan that he wasn't going to build in the middle. It would hold any future owners of that land to that zoning, and he could have gone ahead and gotten his project done. As it stands, he had to subdivide that part of the property off to build those houses on Morrison and bust up his property that way. So it would have been more efficient for the developer, and it would have accomplished the same thing that we were wanting to do in planning and what this body ended up approving anyway.
Mr. Beller, was the mine not going to set, I know now we've got a mining code, but was that not going to be under industrial?
If you recall, we didn't have mining. We didn't have anything. It was only by virtue of the grace of God and the opinion of the Court of Appeals agreeing with our opinion that it was the agricultural side of that, if you recall, because we removed that. And we made sure that it was specifically language that was matched our resolution that this body passed that was included in this ordinance. Is that correct? Okay.
I just asked the question. You mentioned that it would have benefited us and kept us away from that litigation if we'd had PUD here, but yet if we don't have the industrial, how would it have done that?
If the industrial needs to be in it, Ms. Mahan, I would recommend we add that along the way at some point. Now, Mr. Gregory may disagree with me. We've not discussed that, but I certainly, I'm in favor of it because it gives this body more oversight. And exactly what Mr. Nallner pointed out is the thing that it's designed to prevent a boondoggle coming in something that we don't need to have. And you can always separate the wheat from the chaff. And the wheat, you're not going to need to have this in, but if you've got one of those situations that you've got that raises an eyebrow, it's good that we have something this. That way it holds them accountable for what they say they're going to do from beginning to end.
And let me be perfectly clear, and Mr. Beller, please correct me if I'm wrong, but this body has no responsibility to rezone any property that is brought before us. The property, when you buy it, is zoned a certain way, and you bought it with that understanding. We do not have any legal obligation to rezone a property. This is just giving both the owner of the property and this body some security if you want to change that zoning, this is what you're going to do with it.
The changes that were made concerning mining are included in the document. They're in there. The process to create a mine is in there as it is today. If you want it to also be a part of the PUD, that would be a pretty easy thing to change, to add that as a part of the PUD ordinance.
I'll state one last time. My only concern, Mr. Belder, and I understand your reasoning for this piece, is continuing to put more oversight in a body just to put your thumb on something that you didn't like that happened. And I don't like that part of governing.
This is one a little further than longer than I thought it would, but it's been some great comments, questions, answers, anything else we need on this. Everybody look through it. Make your own opinion on this. We'll have a vote on it Monday night. Anybody else? Why he's here? Get all the questions answered tonight, where it won't last so long next Monday night. All righty. Appreciate you, Mr. Grieger. All righty, we'll move into ordinance 341-202-603, rezone A1 to I1, parcel 019 on Halltown Road. Ms. Mayan, please approach the podium to discuss this ordinance, if you don't mind.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, now that is going to be a very hard discussion to follow with another rezoning topic here. So if you would please refer to your packet. This section of property is the Stetson Holder property that fronts on Halltown Road. It also has some road frontage on New Halltown Road. And they are looking to rezone this A1 piece of property to I1, which is industrial. And if you look in your packet, you'll see that I have highlighted on the zoning map. It's outlined in blue. It is right next to that purple property. That is the industrial park that's up there near the recycling center, the meat processing plant. There's several different businesses there. That is industrial, so that it's right next to the industrial zone. The planning consultant gave a favorable recommendation, as well as the planning commission, to rezone this to industrial. We need more industrial property here in the county, and the reason for rezoning this property is to increase marketability of the land. What questions might you have?
So what's built there must be industrial. They can't change their mind and say, oh, I'm going to put apartments. Or do we have to do a PUD first, industrial, before we can say that?
So the industrial zoning allows for the low intensity industrial uses, as well as, believe it or not, it allows for commercial. What's allowed in a commercial zone will be allowed in an industrial zone. So you may see a business or two there, just like we have the Anderson meat processing plant there in the industrial zone. But as far as anything else, no, ma'am.
You notice this is being annexed into the city.
That was going to be the next topic. Thank you, sir.
I don't have a problem with it getting to industrial, but my problem is how they're gonna get the trucks in and out of there. I think it should be a stipulation there there's gonna have to be a road put in to get to all that industrial, cause right now it all comes down to Andrews Avenue. They have to take up all lanes to make that turn up there. And we already got enough traffic with them on it. And then you start adding more, it's gonna be more trucks. And then you got people coming up and down there going through the dump. There's already too much traffic on that one road.
Thank you, sir. I hear what you're saying. Now, with this road frontage, Industrial Drive does go through that property, but they do have road frontage on Halltown and as well as New Halltown Road. Right now, we don't know what they're going to be putting there. And that'll be part of the site plan development where even before they come to planning, they will have to bring documentation that they've done feasibility studies. And that was going to be the next part of what Mr. Nollner had already mentioned about the annexation. We've already gone to the water department to see, okay, what type of water line do they have? And we had included that in the packet where along Halltown Road, there is a 12-inch water line that goes there that they will be able to have access to. There is already a fire hydrant up there that does have fire protection, which is 500 gallons per minute. Down on New Halltown Road, there is another fire hydrant over there. Through this property, they do have another 6-inch water line as well as sewer access as well. So they will be able to have sewer capabilities, and that's why they're asking to be annexed into the city limits. But yes, the roads department will be consulted before anything is ever approved on this piece of property, and everything will have to make sense.
Looking at the parcel map on page 27, it looks like there's some kind of structure in the middle of that property, kind of toward the bottom. What is that?
I believe that is a barn.
I believe Mr. Mayor Carmen, back when he was the mayor, tried to get a road straight through that property out to New Halltown Road, and something happened, it fell through, but I couldn't tell you. It's been so long, I don't remember exactly, but I do remember him trying to get the road there by the dump straight out to the New Halltown Road.
So I've talked to Mr. Carroll about that when he was proposing that, and he was trying to do it with state funds to have the state pay for it, and the state shot him down. So I think I agree with Mr. Gregory. That running all these trucks up Andrews is a bad idea for growing industrial. To have access from New Halltown and directing all truck traffic to New Halltown and then going in the industrial that way would make so much more sense as far as a traffic flow. It would also help our roads, for Andrews and industrial as you go to Mueller, keep it from getting, so many potholes and rutted and give it some longer life. I don't know if that's something we can work out with the developer, with the owner of the property, as he's wanting to develop this for industrial. If we could get something worked out where the county pays for some of the road and they pay for some of the road, to try to get that done. But to be able to have that access, I mean, that's a great spot for industrial as far as in the urban district. It's minimal effect on any of its neighbors because of how isolated it already is. And it's rural development out there. I mean, you're not even getting close to it. I think you've got maybe 4 homes there at the south end of that. And then you've got, even the farmhouse up New Halltown there is, several hundred yards away from that property. So, noise shouldn't be any more than what they already have at the existing industrial.
Any more comments or questions in regard to this? Guys, I'm getting sleepy up here, man. We spent a long night so far. So all right, we'll move into the next ordinance, 342-202-604, the annexation. of that. Ms. Mahan?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. As I mentioned before, the planning consultant, given the information we were given, the water feasibility, the electric and the sewer capabilities, this received a favorable recommendation from the planning consultant, myself, and the planning commission as well, for the ability to be annexed into the city limits.
Any questions on this? Well, thank you, Ms. Mahan. All right, it looks like we're down to budget amendments. All amendments, even those that are fund balance draws, may be taken in one motion. Should that be the will of the body? Mr. Gregory, please go over the amendments as approved by your committee if you want.
Certainly. Of course, the Budget and Finance met earlier this evening, approved all four amendments. 10111I is an insurance recovery from a vehicle with that was involved in an accident with the sheriff's department, 10,300. 10112F is a fund balance draw, 33,210, and that is to cover increases in county insurance premiums for employees. 11804 is a $22,000 internal transfer within the ambulance service, where their billing clerk retired at the end of December. EMS is contracted with a private company to handle the billing, and this is an internal transfer to cover that expense. And then the 14113 is 202,801. It's revenue coming in from the TISA. It's taking some of their TISA money. It looks like it's going building improvements, maintenance, repair. We did ask at Budget and Finance if we knew what specifically these were. We did not. I will be reaching out to the director of schools to try to get an answer on what exactly these are going to be used for. Hopefully we'll have that for next Monday.
Thank you, Chris. Anybody got any questions? No. Any questions, Mr. Gregory, on the budget? I would say there was all a favorable recommendation from the Budget and Finance Committee earlier. Any more questions on the budget amendments? All righty. Next thing is a public notary applications approval. Ms. Crowder will have a list prepared for next Monday night. Next thing is resolutions. We had a resolution that was added. It was the handout at your seat. Everybody get that? Resolution 2026-02836. Adopt a master plan for the park complex. Amy, would you just sort of give a brief synopsis of what, Mayor?
Yeah, this is the basic master plan that TDEC requires that the county do every 5 years. The money to make it happen was approved earlier by the commission. Let me direct your attention down to points 1 through 4. It simply serves as a guiding framework for future park development and grant applications, and it gives the county mayor and appropriate county departments the authority to utilize the plan in pursuing funds and grants and implementing projects consistent with available resources. It does not give the mayor the authority to spend any money, but it gives us the authority to pursue possibilities and bring recommendations back to the court. I think a key part of this is to find out what grants are available to do what the commission decides it wants to do, whether it would be which option that's laid out before us we'd like to choose. One being the swimming pool, one being ballpark expansion, but that'll all depend on the funding we can get to do it. But basically, this is just approving the master plan so we can go forward.
Chris.
One question, just to clarify, if we, no, assuming we opt to approve the master plan, do we have to say we are approving option A, B, or C, or we're just approving the plan in general?
So it's mainly a plan in general. In a year, if you want to pursue option A, then you would get with the mayor's office, kind of pursue buying that property. If you want to do option B, option C, same thing. It's honestly, it's giving you options.
You should have the copy of it that you see there now. If you would, just look through it and read over it. And let's get through here. Let's next thing here. Other business. First thing on the other business, proposed jail justice center estimates. Mayor McCall.
At the numbers, Jim Langford. If you will remember in the original study by TCI, the projection was from the very beginning, I guess this was 4 or 5 years ago, was a 104 bed facility. What Sprint presented to us, or Spirit presented to us, was a 100 bed facility that would build 75 beds with room to expand to 100. So we asked for these numbers, and this is a basic jail, 75 beds with, remember when Mr. Langford explained the pieces of the pie, you develop 3 pieces of the pie and then have room to expand. Sheriff Russell and Whalen and the jail administrator at that time, along with members of the court, came up with these numbers as far as space is concerned. I was a little bit surprised that we could build a 75 bed jail and all the support offices for this figure. This would, with the land we're looking at across from the jail, there would be room to expand to courtrooms later. Now, this particular option is based on the fact that we still owe $1 million on the current criminal justice center, but this would have room to expand into those courts later. And this also is based on the fact the land across from, if in fact the holders, and they haven't given me a final answer yet, would sell us that 90 feet. Now, one other option has come to our attention, and that is this. Enbridge has offered fill to whatever extent we would like fill, land fill, and so that's brought the piece of property that's next to the current fire department back into the equation. They would provide fill at no cost to the county and bring it up to a level of street level. Instead of dealing with 1.17 acres and possibly purchasing another half acre, that entire lot is 5.5 acres, 2 acres on the left-hand side, and then it wraps around behind the fire hall. Mr. Langford, I met with Jim Hart with TCI this week. He and the architect both got really excited about that piece of property because even as you think in terms of the footprint for the jail, you're not forced to make it as compact as you would be with the property across from the jail. The next thing we need to do is have a engineer look at that property to advise us on exactly how to fill it. That would be the next step there. In looking at these numbers, if the court would like for me to go back to Mr. Langford and say, well, what would it cost to go ahead and build the courtrooms now? We could do that. But this would be the most economical approach to meeting our needs currently. If you look at the number, and jails are being built in Middle Tennessee right now. 3 jails I know of are being built right now, and the cost is $680 a foot instead of $800 a foot, which means I think the numbers you see before you are a bit on the high side. And so if you would like to come back with numbers to say, okay, we've got more land now, let's go ahead and build courtrooms. But again, I take you back to the fact that we have courtrooms in a building that we do not have paid for at this time. If you look at that 17,000, 18,000, 18 million figure, now instead of looking at a $2 million payment, you're looking at more of a $900,000 to a $1.2 million annual payment, which would be much more palatable than a $2 million payment. But again, this basic floor plan was developed with the sheriff and Chief Cothran and all the players involved. It's a good floor plan, which could be adjusted some. We've talked about the fact that 911 probably needs to be located in this building, but these are numbers that I think should be considered. And then if the court wants to look at spending more money, we can spend more, but we could meet our needs currently with room to expand with these figures, I think, being very palatable. Question?
I would be very interested in looking into the land on Broadway.
Well, I think we're going to feel that regardless of whether we build a jail there, because we've got all this field. It's not going to cost anything, but it's a matter of it's just a matter of if that's the direction the court would like to take.
Well, it would give us a lot more parking and a lot more space for the courts.
And part of that, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. And we do need to keep in mind that even though we don't have the current Justice Center paid for, it is very dangerous. It was not built appropriately to keep our community safe. And it's not a question of, is someone going to get hurt? It's a question of when.
And you know, when the sheriff and I discussed this a couple of weeks ago, the one negative that we discussed was the fact that you'd have to transfer prisoners from Broadway to the current Criminal Justice Center. However, there need to be modifications made to the Criminal Justice Center, and Mr. Hart with TCI suggested that we add a sally port to that building so that you could to enhance your safety.
Just, 2 questions. I agree with Ms. Kerr that the Broadway property just sounds intriguing. That property, it has flooded in the past. Do we know, I guess, would Phil take care of that? Do we know if?
Yeah, part of it's in the floodplain. You could still build parking in the floodplain, but yeah, when you bring that up to street level, you're bringing it above the floodplain.
Okay, and second question, of course, we have 75 on here. The last meeting, the meeting we had with the architect, I think where we talked about doing the pieces of pie on the jail, he was talking, I think, like 50 per, I guess 50 beds per piece. He talked about like 50 or 100 and then expanding on. I guess how do we get to 75? And I guess if we expanded, would it be like, would we be adding like 50 at a time or 25 at a time? How would we?
Well, when I talked to Mr. Hart about, when he talked about the 4 pieces of the pie, it was 25 per section, which means when you filled out the 4th section of the pie, you'd be at 100. Mr. Hart kind of felt if you had more room, like the property on Broadway, you could very possibly, if you watch your costs, build 100 beds very close to the same money we're looking at, because you'd not be as squeezed in trying to get it on a smaller footprint. So that's still an option.
So, Mr. Mayor, I would love to see, as you brought up, the $800 a square foot is probably 200 square foot more than what it really would cost. I would love to see what it would cost to build two criminal justice courtrooms with a 75 bed so that the sheriff didn't have to transport and use the existing courtrooms for your civil court and see what that comes out. We might actually end up being still at that 20 million mark, which is a whole lot cheaper than what we were originally looking at.
I think that's certainly an option I'd love to bring back to the court to have Mr. Langford crunch those numbers for us and bring them back to us. We can have that done pretty soon.
If we do end up building it on Broadway, then we would have that extra land we already own for the park.
Correct.
That would be great.
It would free up that for parking. It would free up it for a lot of needs for the downtown. Yep. Excellent point.
Just two questions. First, have we looked at cost? I know the field is free and I love the idea of going over there. No matter what, I think we need to fill that area. But have we looked at what, in doing fill, you can't just pour fill in. There are equipments and there's compression tests. There's some engineering work that has to go into this. Do we know what cost we're looking at there? Question one. And question two, you mentioned 900 to 1.2 million possible as a payment per year. I'm a little curious. I'm a mathematician. I'm not trying to check your work here, but we were looking at a $25 million bid at $2 million to 2.2 million is what that payment was going to be, if I remember correctly. I figured up on the 18 million, that's at 72% of that's what that would be. That comes out to about 1.5 million a year on that payment. Where did the 900 to 1.2 come from? Did we get a better?
I was doing my figuring on 17 at 4% at 40 years.
Okay.
You can play with the numbers. There are a number of ways you can play with the numbers. By the way, a representative through which we clear most of our finances is coming this week, and we're going to find out what's available as far as USDA and what money's available and what interest rates are out there.
So those weren't actual, that's what I was getting at. That's
Yeah.
what I was hoping. I was hoping you had found an interest rate better than the one we were looking at.
As a matter of fact, I had Will crunch some numbers and Amy crunch some numbers, and that's the range that we had.
I was just hoping you'd found a better.
Also, Landon looked into the fact that if Enbridge brings that fill, that they'd be responsible for leveling it as we go, and it's no additional cost to the county. Now, that's what I heard. That's what I found out.
I just want to caution us to be real careful. You said leveling it. There's a whole lot of difference between leveling field and compression, compaction, so that you can build on that leveling field. So let's be real careful there is all I'm saying.
That's why we're gonna have an engineer look at it first.
So are we going to investigate that before we move any further on?
Well, I'll just ask the court, would you like to see numbers on going ahead and added those courtrooms to it as we go?
I would like to see investigation to Broadway where we can have a much larger space. And use that for the park. I make a motion.
Actually, we need the motion, I guess, on Monday night, don't we? Yeah, this is just discussion.
No motions in work session. I see why, Mr. Taylor.
Mr. Chairman, I would like some direction from the court as to what you want me to, numbers you want me to bring you back.
Mr. Gutley.
What do those numbers cost us before we say all of them? I assume they're not going to do this for free. So do we know what it cost them to bring us these numbers? Let's be careful is all I'm asking on that. Don't spend money just to spend money.
Well, it sounds like we want to hear numbers on what it, what it would cost if we put this on the Broadway site with with the courts included. Am I, that seems kind of be the consensus among the body as I have understood it. Anybody feel free to correct me, but I think that's the direction we want to go, Mayor.
Is everybody sort of, Beverly?
I'd just like to take in consideration, I think Broadway is a great idea, but once you do fill that up, there is going to be water, there's going to be stuff that is going to come downhill. Therefore, it's going to come to back to the football fields. It's going to come, I don't mind saying it, it's going to come to my business. And I've built up around my business just where we don't have water under our buildings. Just need to take notations how that runoff is going to go coming down through there, depending on how high we build it.
I think that's why you bring in the engineer. That's the purpose of that.
So are we wanting them to look at the Broadway property with the field and get some figures, or, I mean, what's, he's needing some kind of leadway, I think.
I'd like to see it with the courts. I'd like to see it on Broadway. Building a jail without the courts involved is it's just a waste of money. It's the safety and security of the people. I mean, right now, we're barely getting by with what we have. I think it's in a good spot over there as long as it doesn't cause any problems with water, as Beverly said, but I think we should see the numbers with the courts added on Broadway.
So it seems like that's what the majority wants, Broadway.
I second his motion.
Well, okay. I mean, I think that's what the understanding is. I think that's the majority of what the people sort of want me to come up with, the figure from the Broadway with the anything else on this? All righty, we're going into another wheel tax proposal. With the information we now have from the Mayor McCall, does this body want to discuss the wheel tax proposal?
We discussed last month, of course, the percentages, and it seemed like the majority in here were kind of an 80-20 jail schools, or a 90-10, or even 100-0. At $80, I believe the amount on the wheel tax estimate was about 930,000. Am I in the ballpark? Based on these numbers, a wheel tax would mostly cover it. So I would say minimum 90-10, or jail, schools. If we want to set something aside, for the future, or even go 100-0 and just have it just be for the jail, with the idea that it will sunset.
I'll throw this out there. I mean, I talked to people about this. I do several different polls, and one of the things that we brought up and talked about was who would actually vote on the wheel tax. The polls that I conducted reached about 440 people. Okay, I said, just simply asked them, who do you want to vote on the wheel tax? Simple question. I got simple answers. Out of 441 people, 109 votes came in at 95% voted they wanted to have the say on the wheel tax. I had 5 votes come in, 4%, saying we should vote on it. So by a super majority, I'm getting that the people do want to vote on this tax. As far as most people I've talked to, they want a wheel tax, but they want it on one particular project. They want to know that wheel tax is going to pay for the project that we need. That's the feedback that I've been getting. Everybody's got their own districts and their own people they talk to. But I would actually like to see the wheel tax completely pay for this whole project, because they're under the belief that if the will tax passes, then the property owner's taxes doesn't go up. That's actually a false statement. Property tax will go up, but they're not comprehending that. And that's got to do with a lot of misinformation as well. But I would like to see the will tax pay for this project and let's get it out of the way and then move on to something else. But that's the feedback that I've been getting, just so the commission knows.
So over the last week or so, I've been going door to door, knocking, talking to my constituents. Most of my constituents in the 9th district have moved here from outside the county. And every one of them said, well, it's still cheaper than what I was paying where I left. And I see the need for it. I'd rather it go on wheel tax where everyone was paying than raising my property tax where only a small percentage of the county was paying for it. So that's what I've gotten out of my district.
That was the second question I asked everyone I spoke with when I was getting my petition signed. People were for the wheel tax, and I did tell them their property tax would probably go up some, but not as much without it. And they were not for very much, if any, going to the school system, that it needed to go to jail.
Anybody else?
I got one more thing. Just to be clear on that, that's not being the people just, it was basically coming first come, first serve on this. They just wanted the will tax to pay for the first project that we needed. The state is saying we need this, and that is what they wanted the money to go for. It's not anti-schools or anything like that. They just wanted to know that exactly where it's going, exactly how much, and when it will sunset.
If I'm correct, didn't the wheel tax only pass by one vote when it went up for the school system? Johnny told me that. I don't know that for myself.
Mr. Ford would probably know more about that back then, on that. I mean, Mr. Ford, you and Mr. Belcher is when it come up with this to start off with. What do y'all, what?
I'll let Brandon express to you how we come up with that. I was present today that me and Pat Ferguson drawed up the wheel tax to do the high school down yonder. We did put a time limit on it. It done exactly what we asked it to do. It paid for all of it, and it's sunset. Question is here, we still don't know how much money we're going to be spending. I'll let Mr. Belcher tell you where we'll come up with a 40-40-20.
I think the discussions were in the event that pay some toward the debt to pay that down, one for the jail and one for the potential for school systems at some point. So that was the 40-40-20. What I'm hearing tonight is that I've heard a lot of different things, and I guess I'm going to need some direction at some point. I'm the one typed it up. So however this body wants to do it, just tell me what you want done. I will throw in this. It's been my experience in dealing with wheels taxes in your next county over in Smith County. People typically like the funding tied to the project. They like to see what the numbers are, which is, in this sense, what have we got? We got a project, got a jail. Don't know of any school projects at this point, but I'm sure there's been a lot of talk about those that are on the way. Every one of them I've ever seen have been pulled to referendum. I can't remember a single one when I served that didn't go on a referendum. And more often than not, projects were built around a combination of revenue streams, sales tax, wheel tax, and property tax. And that was how they built the jail over, and that's how they funded the project over in Smith County for that justice center over there. Of course, at that time, I think the price tag was around $10 million, $12 million. It's a far cry from that day. You know, you've got at least a good set of numbers here. Just as a recommendation, we might want to see what the options are that come back from the mayor, what he can present. You might want to narrow it down a little more after that. That gives you some more food for thought. And obviously, we're going to need some calculations on what a payment would be. You know, you've got a fund right now, 171's got some money that's sitting in it. So that's for consideration as well. You know, you look at your revenue streams and your expenditures. Probably wouldn't hurt to have kind of a thought process about a projection of sales tax going forward. I know that we had some discussions earlier in budget and finance that the sales taxes were better than what we thought they were. And so I don't know if that trend, why that trend is or why it exists or what's causing that, but that might be something we want to look at, depending upon if it's static. Whatever you do, if you do a wheel tax, you know, you've got to consider about it sunsetting or not. That's always a question that everybody in the public's going to ask. And so you might want to talk to your constituents about that. Typically the ones I've seen, wheel taxes have been set out for about 20 years. I was asked a question earlier about how do you change a wheel tax? Well, if this body votes it in and it's not pulled a referendum, you can amend it. If it is pulled a referendum and it's voted in by the people, that's the way you amend it. That's to go back to them. They decide. So.
Question for Mr. Beller. If this commission chose to send it to referendum from a time frame, would we be able to get it on, let's say before August, or would it have to be November, or would it have to be down the road past that?
Hard. 180 days, but I reached out to ask that question. I haven't gotten an answer back yet on that. Okay, to get confirmation on my time frames. So, did you ever receive a response on that? I think I copied you on that email. So, but again,
That should be something we take into consideration, whether we opt to do it ourselves or send to referendum. I would hate to have a special election or wait 2 more years for the next general to set something in place.
I agree, but we're somewhat at the mercy of when we can start this project.
Ms. Beller, correct me if I'm wrong. If this court passes it, whatever your percentages are, and later down the road, you need some of that money in another area, this court can change it. Is that not right?
Not if it's pulled a referendum, it goes by a referendum. Now, Mr. Brook did point out something that if you do set this, you know, and then of course the thought process did come to mind that you can always, like with anything, there's nothing that prohibits you from having more than one wheel tax per project. So that's a thought, maybe not a good thought, but it is one that exists. And I've seen that.
But my point is, if it goes to referendum, whatever how it's written, that's where it's going to stay. The only way it can be changed is go back to referendum. Is that not right?
That's my understanding of the law.
So my point is, the court and the county situation is better off if this body passes it. You just need to come to an agreement on how you're going to spend it.
But Ms. Ford, one of the things that they can do is they can pull it to referendum if they want to do that. It's not necessarily in the authority of the court. Certain petition, I think it's 10% of the last gubernatorial election that they can actually petition to pull it, is all it takes. And that's not a whole lot of people. I mean, assuming the accuracy of what Mr. Crook reported and others that have said, then the probability exists that it's going to go to referendum. So even if this court did that, but again, it may be getting the cart before the horse a little bit, because we've still got some, I think what the mayor's asked for next week is maybe some authority to move forward in some other areas. So it could change these numbers slightly, maybe not, don't know. But think we've got a good ground basis for the numbers that we have of what it's going to cost. And then, maybe a little more than that, maybe, I don't know, possibly could be less, I don't know. We're talking about adding courts, and then kind of check your revenue stream on what you're going to have on those sales taxes that are coming in. Now, I know the school gets a portion of that. What is it, 50%? Is that correct? 50%. And so we know that's going to be going their direction, which is also beneficial if they're looking at other projects. So that sales tax revenue, assuming it's constant, is going to be very beneficial from what I heard tonight.
Last night I happened to be watching the news, and there's legislation about to come forth in Nashville to limit the counties on how much you can raise the taxes per year. 2%, 5%. It was there last night, and whether it passed or not, I don't know. But that would really put a killing on us if it does pass.
Anybody else got anything? It seemed like what I'm hearing, majority, it's for the wheel tax here, and then the ones you talk to, constituents, they're for it. I mean, that's what I'm hearing. I mean, and we need to try to we've been talking about this for a couple of years. We need to get it either on referendum or get it voted in. I mean, and decided, it seems like the way he's talking tonight, it needs to go to one project for the jail. I mean, I just what I'm hearing tonight. I mean, does anybody else got any comment? Mr. Gregory?
Just one last question for Mr. Ballard. The 180 days, that you mentioned. If it went to referendum, does it have to be at the county general in August, or could it be like on the state or general election in November? I think we're past the 180 days for August at this point.
I'm trying to remember. I always have to go look at that, and I always have to consult the election commission on that to get that straight. I know it seems like at one point that you can actually call a special election, but I want to think you can do it in November. Let me look at that a little bit and get back with you, okay?
Well, I mean, we can call a special election, but that costs money too. Like I said, I think we're already past that. We can't meet the 180 deadline for the August election at this point, but we could for November. I guess in theory, if we had something in place, I guess by the end of April, if we were allowed to put it on November, I think we would be within the 180 days. That's why I asked that question.
It's likely to be in our best interest not to have it on the election docket on the big election, because a lot of people will be coming out. If there's a special election, we might have a better chance to pass it.
Well, the mayor's get back with us, look at that project area, get some more numbers, and like I said, we need to get something moving on this, as soon as we can, though. But it's been a long night. It's 8:30. Anything else we need to discuss tonight? Thank y'all. Appreciate y'all coming.